Have you ever found yourself endlessly scrolling through dating apps, hoping for a connection that never quite materializes? Or maybe you've experienced that hollow feeling after bending over backwards to impress someone who barely noticed your effort. It's a modern kind of loneliness, one that leaves you questioning your worth and wondering if real connection is even possible anymore. But what if I told you the answers to these struggles aren't found in another self-help book or a new dating strategy, but in an ancient philosophy that has stood the test of time? Stoicism, often misunderstood as cold or unfeeling, is actually one of the most powerful tools we have for reclaiming our self-respect, our emotional freedom, and our capacity for genuine relationships. Today, we're diving deep into 25 Stoic disciplines designed to help you stop simping forever, not by becoming detached or dismissive of love, but by building an unshakable foundation of self-worth that no external validation can ever replace. These aren't quick fixes or manipulative tactics. They are time-tested principles that teach us how to desire without desperation, to connect without clinging, and to love without losing ourselves in the process. This is about transformation from the inside out, rooted in clarity, purpose, and emotional resilience. Imagine approaching dating and relationships not from a place of lack or fear, but from a position of strength and abundance. That's what the Stoic path offers. Over the course of this video, we'll walk through each of these 25 disciplines, unpacking how they apply to modern romance, self-image, and interpersonal dynamics. You'll learn how to cultivate inner calm amidst rejection, how to set boundaries that honor your values, and how to attract people who respect you for who you are, not for who you pretend to be. This isn't about playing games, it's about stepping into your power. So if you're ready to leave behind the cycles of validation seeking and people-pleasing, you're in the right place. Let's begin. This first discipline is arguably the most important of all because it lays the foundation for everything else. It's the core Stoic principle known as the dichotomy of control. In simple terms, this is about making a clear and non-negotiable distinction between what is within your power and what is not. The ancient Stoics, like Epictetus, hammered this point home relentlessly. He began his famous handbook, the Enchiridion, by stating, "Some things are within our power while others are not." It sounds almost too simple, but its application is utterly transformative, especially when it comes to breaking the cycle of simping. So, what exactly is within your control, your own mind? Your judgments, your intentions, your desires, your aversions, and the actions you choose to take. That's your empire. Everything else, the opinions of others, how they treat you, whether they text you back, if they find you attractive, if they choose to commit, these are all externals. They reside firmly in the territory of things not within your control. The agony of simping, that desperate need for validation, arises precisely when we invest our sense of worth and happiness in those externals. We hand over the keys to our emotional state to someone else and then are shocked when they crash the car. Think about a classic simping scenario. You send a carefully crafted text to someone you're deeply interested in. The hours tick by with no response. Your mind starts racing. You check your phone incessantly. You wonder what you did wrong. You draft and delete follow-up messages. This entire spiral of anxiety is a perfect example of trying to control the uncontrollable. You cannot control their phone, their schedule, their interest level, or their decision to reply. The only thing you ever controlled was your decision to send the message. That was your action. The outcome, that belongs to fortune. The Stoic shift happens when you consciously redirect all that wasted energy. Instead of fretting over the reply you can't force, you focus on what you can manage, your own judgment about the situation. You can choose to judge the silence not as a personal rejection, but simply as a neutral event, a data point. You can control your decision to not send a needy follow-up text. You can control turning your attention back to your own work, your own life, your own purpose. This isn't about indifference, it's about placing your effort where it will actually make a difference. When you stop trying to manage another person's feelings and start rigorously managing your own responses, you cease to be a supplicant begging for attention and become a grounded individual who engages with others from a place of genuine choice, not fear. Now, let's consider a practice that might seem counterintuitive at first but is incredibly effective at building emotional resilience. This is the second discipline, negative visualization, or what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It's the deliberate act of imagining the worst-case scenarios, not to feed fear or pessimism, but to disarm them completely. In the context of relationships and dating, this is a game-changing tool for dismantling desperation and the fear of loss that so often leads to simping behavior. The core idea is simple yet profound. We spend so much mental energy trying to avoid thinking about rejection, being alone, or having our feelings hurt. We treat these possibilities like monsters in the closet, afraid to even look at them. But what happens when you finally open that closet door and shine a light inside? You often find that the monster is far smaller and more manageable than you imagined. Negative visualization is the process of opening that door voluntarily. By consciously and calmly imagining the very outcomes we fear, we systematically strip them of their power to control us through anxiety. For instance, you're about to ask someone out on a date. The simping mindset would be consumed with a desperate need for a yes, viewing a no as a catastrophic event that proves your unworthiness. This anxiety makes you nervous, needy, and far less attractive in your presentation. Now apply negative visualization. Before you even ask, take a moment to seriously contemplate the worst possible outcome. She says no. She might even laugh or give a curt, dismissive reply. Then what? Walk yourself through it. You will feel a momentary sting of embarrassment. You will survive that feeling. Your life will continue. You will still have your friends, your passions, your purpose. The sun will rise the next morning. By fully accepting this potential outcome as not only possible but survivable, you remove its fangs. You realize that your self-worth was never truly on the line in that question. It was only your ego that was vulnerable. This practice does not make you cold or detached. On the contrary, it allows you to engage more authentically because you are no longer interacting from a place of hidden desperation. When you truly know in your bones that you can handle rejection, you become free to be yourself. Your conversations become more genuine because you're not filtering every word through a lens of, will this make them like me? You are no longer seeking validation, you are offering connection, and that shift is palpable. Confidence is not the certainty of a positive outcome, it is the certainty that you can handle any outcome. Negative visualization is the gym where that specific mental muscle is built. Furthermore, this discipline profoundly enhances gratitude for what you do have. By regularly imagining the loss of your friendships, your health, or your current opportunities, you begin to appreciate them more deeply in the present moment. This reduces the tendency to place one person on a pedestal as your sole source of happiness. When you recognize the abundance already present in your life, the approval or attention of a single potential partner becomes a pleasant potential addition rather than a vital necessity for your survival. This is the ultimate antidote to simping, realizing you are already whole and any relationship should be a welcome partnership, not a rescue mission for your lonely soul. Building on the foundation of knowing what you can control and mentally preparing for any outcome, we arrive at the heart of the matter, your character. This brings us to the third Stoic discipline, cultivating self-respect and dignity. The ancient Stoics referred to this as living with arete, a Greek word often translated as virtue or excellence of character. For them, this wasn't about being morally perfect according to some rigid set of rules. It was about expressing the highest version of yourself through your actions, your choices, and your integrity. It's about aligning your behavior with your core principles, especially when it's difficult or when no one is watching. In the context of modern dating, this is the ultimate safeguard against simping, because when you truly respect yourself, you stop bargaining your dignity for scraps of external validation. Think about what simping often looks like. It's laughing a little too hard at a joke that wasn't funny. It's pretending to share an interest you don't actually have. It's agreeing with an opinion you privately disagree with. It's being available at all hours, canceling your own plans, and constantly prioritizing their whims over your own scheduled life. Each one of these small acts is a tiny auction where you sell off a piece of your self-respect for the hope of a reward. The Stoics would argue that the cost is astronomically high. You aren't just losing their respect, you are losing your own. And without your own self-respect, no amount of external approval will ever feel like enough. You become a bottomless pit of need. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to stay true to his character. In his private journal, known today as Meditations, he wrote, "You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow." This is a powerful call to action. The decision to act with dignity isn't something you postpone until you feel confident or until you meet the right person. It's a choice you make in this very moment in your next interaction. It means stating your opinion calmly, even if it might be unpopular. It means maintaining your existing commitments to your friends and your work instead of dropping everything for a last-minute text. It means walking away from a situation that demands you compromise your values, not with drama, but with quiet resolve. The incredible paradox of this discipline is that behaving with unshakable self-respect is what actually makes you more attractive in a genuine way. People are inherently drawn to those who have a strong sense of self. When you refuse to compromise your dignity, you communicate that you are a person of substance and value. You are not a cheap commodity desperate for a buyer. You are a valuable investment. This doesn't mean being arrogant or inflexible. It means having a non-negotiable bottom line when it comes to how you allow yourself to be treated. You teach people how to treat you by what you are willing to accept. If you accept breadcrumbs, you signal that you are a pigeon. If you only accept a seat at the table, you signal that you are a respected guest. Consider a practical example. You're on a date with someone you really like, and they make a casual, dismissive comment about your career or a hobby that means a lot to you. The simping response is to shrink, to nervously laugh it off, or even to agree with their critique to avoid conflict. The response rooted in arete is different. You might pause and say with calm confidence, "I actually put a lot of passion into that, so I see it differently." You haven't attacked them, you haven't been rude. But you have calmly and clearly drawn a boundary. You have stated that your values and your passions are not up for negotiation. In that moment, you have either filtered out someone who doesn't respect you, or, more positively, you have earned their respect by demonstrating you respect yourself. This is how you build relationships based on mutual admiration, not on one-sided appeasement. Your dignity is not a barrier to connection. It is the very foundation upon which a healthy and lasting connection can be built. This next discipline might sound a bit extreme at first, but it's one of the most practical and immediately effective tools in the Stoic toolkit for building genuine confidence. It's the practice of embracing voluntary discomfort. The Stoics weren't masochists, they were pragmatists. They understood that comfort is a cage, and the fear of losing that comfort makes us weak, needy, and desperate to please. By deliberately and periodically choosing to step into small, manageable forms of hardship, we inoculate ourselves against the fear of larger, unexpected hardships like romantic rejection or social embarrassment. The ancient Stoics were masters of this. Seneca, an enormously wealthy advisor to the Emperor Nero, would famously practice poverty. He would set aside a few days each month to wear his oldest clothes, eat only the plainest bread, and sleep on a hard floor. Why would a man who slept in a palace do this? He wasn't punishing himself. He was testing his own fortitude and proving to himself that his happiness was not dependent on his luxurious surroundings. He was building the resilience to handle a potential future where he might lose it all, which, in his volatile position, was a very real possibility. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' Now, let's translate this powerful idea into the modern world of dating and relationships. The core fear that drives simping is the fear of discomfort, the visceral dread of feeling awkward, being rejected, or ending up alone. This fear is so potent that it causes us to contort ourselves, suppress our opinions, and tolerate poor treatment just to avoid that momentary sting. Voluntary discomfort is the training that makes that sting lose its power. When you are already familiar with discomfort, and you know you can not only survive it but thrive within it, the prospect of a no or an awkward silence becomes trivial. It's no longer a monster, it's a minor inconvenience. So what does this look like in practice? It doesn't have to be sleeping on the floor. It can be as simple as taking a cold shower instead of a hot one. That initial shock is a tiny battle with your own desire for comfort, and winning that battle first thing in the morning sets a tone of mental toughness for your entire day. It can be skipping a meal and realizing that a little hunger is not an emergency. It can be walking somewhere instead of driving, or turning off the entertainment and sitting in silence for 15 minutes. Each of these acts is a vote for your own self-reliance. They are small declarations that say, "I am tougher than my cravings. My well-being is not dictated by my external conditions." Apply this directly to your social interactions. The next time you're in a conversation, practice the voluntary discomfort of not filling every single silence with nervous chatter. Sit with the quiet, let it be okay. This builds the muscle to handle pauses without anxiety. Or practice the discomfort of expressing a contrary opinion in a low-stakes setting. Disagree with a friend about a movie or a sports team. Get comfortable with the feeling of not being universally agreed with. This directly translates to the confidence to state your authentic self on a date, rather than reflexively mirroring the other person's personality to gain their approval. The ultimate result of this practice is a profound reduction in neediness. When you are no longer terrified of life's minor aches and inconveniences, you stop seeing a potential partner as your personal comfort dispenser. You engage with them not because you need their validation to feel okay, but because you genuinely enjoy their company and are curious about who they are. You become able to walk away from situations that don't serve you because you know from practiced experience that a little discomfort is not the end of the world. In fact, it's often the beginning of greater strength. You stop simping because you no longer see comfort as the highest goal. You see character, built through chosen challenge, as the true prize. Now, let's explore a discipline that might be the most misunderstood in all of Stoicism, yet is absolutely crucial for breaking the cycle of emotional dependency, the practice of mindful detachment. It's vital to clarify right away that this does not mean becoming cold, unfeeling, or disconnected from the people in your life. The Stoic version of detachment is not about building walls or suppressing emotions. It's about shifting your perspective from one of frantic ownership and clinging to one of calm observation and appreciation. It's the art of holding things, including relationships, with an open hand rather than a white-knuckled grip. Think of it like this. Imagine you're watching a compelling play. You're fully engaged in the story, you appreciate the actors' performances, and you feel the emotional weight of the narrative. But you never jump onto the stage and try to rewrite the script or control the other actors. You understand your role is that of an observer. You can enjoy the experience deeply without being consumed by it because you maintain that fundamental awareness that it is a play. Mindful detachment in relationships is very similar. It allows you to be fully present and engaged with someone, to appreciate their qualities and enjoy your time together, all while remembering that you are two separate individuals with your own agency. You are a participant observer in the relationship, not its desperate director. This is the polar opposite of the simping mindset, which is characterized by frantic overinvestment. When you simp, you become the playwright, director, and desperate stagehand all at once for a production you don't truly control. You are consumed with scripting the perfect interactions, directing the other person's feelings, and desperately trying to manage the outcome. This creates immense anxiety because you are constantly trying to force reality to conform to your personal fantasy. The Stoic practice of mindful detachment asks you to put down those other hats and simply be a respectful and engaged co-star. You focus on delivering your own lines with integrity and kindness, but you release your need to control how the other person delivers theirs. A powerful Stoic technique for cultivating this is called the view from above. Marcus Aurelius used this mental exercise to gain perspective on his problems. He would imagine himself rising high above the earth, seeing the vastness of the world, the countless cities and people, and the grand sweep of time. From this vantage point, his personal anxieties and struggles would shrink to their proper size. In the context of a budding romance, you can apply a smaller-scale version of this. When you find yourself becoming overly anxious about a text message or a single interaction, take a mental step back. Ask yourself, in the grand scheme of my life, how much will this one moment truly matter a year from now? This isn't to minimize your feelings, but to contextualize them. It prevents a single event, from Chinese letter, into a catastrophic drama in your mind. The practical benefit of this mindset is that it makes you less reactive and more responsive. A person who is mindfully detached doesn't spiral into panic at the first sign of trouble. If someone they're dating seems momentarily distant, they don't immediately assume it's their fault and fire off a series of insecure texts. Instead, they observe the situation calmly. They might consider various neutral explanations. Perhaps the person is simply busy or having a tough day. They give the situation space to breathe rather than suffocating it with their own anxiety. This calm, unneedy presence is incredibly attractive and often naturally draws people closer because it feels safe and non-threatening. You are not placing a heavy burden of expectation on them to manage your emotional state. Ultimately, practicing mindful detachment allows you to see people and situations more clearly for what they actually are, rather than through the distorting lens of your own desires and fears. You'll begin to appreciate a person's true character, their kindness, their integrity, their humor, instead of idolizing a perfect image you've projected onto them. And if red flags appear, you are far more likely to see them objectively and act accordingly, because your judgment is no longer clouded by desperate hope. This discipline is the key to moving from a place of addictive infatuation to one of genuine, sustainable connection. It allows you to enjoy the beauty of the flower without needing to pluck it from the garden and possess it for yourself. This journey of self-mastery leads us directly to the sixth discipline, the core of Stoic emotional strength. This is about developing a specific kind of resilience, a mental and emotional toughness that allows you to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of dating and relationships without being thrown into a state of panic or desperation. The Stoics called this state apatheia, a term that's often misinterpreted as apathy. Nothing could be further from the truth. For the Stoics, apatheia wasn't about not feeling anything. It was about not being governed by your irrational, reactive passions. It's the difference between feeling a wave of sadness and allowing that wave to pull you out into a sea of despair. Emotional resilience is the skill of feeling the wave without drowning in it. So how do the Stoics build this resilience? It all comes back to their most trusted tool, reason. They treat the mind like a courtroom where every initial emotional impulse is considered a witness, not a judge. The witness can present evidence: I feel hurt, I feel anxious, I feel a desperate need for their attention. But it is reason that serves as the judge, cross-examining that evidence before rendering a verdict. This process creates a crucial pause between a triggering event and your reaction to it. In that pause lies all your freedom. Without it, you are a puppet on a string, jerked around by every external event and the emotions they provoke. With it, you are the puppeteer, choosing which strings to pull. Consider a common trigger. You see someone you've been dating post a picture on social media with someone else. The initial, raw emotional impulse might be jealousy, insecurity, and fear. The simping reaction, driven by that unchecked impulse, is to immediately text them something needy, accusatory, or passive-aggressive. You act out of fear, attempting to control the situation to soothe your own anxiety, and in doing so, you almost always make it worse. The Stoic response begins by acknowledging the feeling. I am feeling jealous right now. That is the evidence my emotions are presenting. But then reason, the judge, steps in. It asks questions. Is this feeling based on a proven fact or on an assumption? What do I actually control in this situation? Does their having other friends or interests truly diminish my own value? What would a proportionate and dignified response look like? By subjecting your initial panic to this rational cross-examination, you prevent it from hijacking your behavior. You might conclude that the feeling is based on an assumption and choose to do nothing, allowing the feeling to pass through you like a weather system. Or if it's a consistent issue, you might later choose to have a calm, adult conversation about expectations, but from a place of clarity, not hysterical need. This is emotional resilience in action. It's not about pretending you don't feel things. It's about ensuring your feelings don't make your decisions for you. The Stoics also trained for resilience through daily reflection, particularly the evening review. Each night they would examine their day. Where did they succeed in acting with virtue? Where did they fall short and let a passion like fear or anger dictate their actions? This isn't about self-flagellation, it's about gathering data. If you notice a pattern, for instance, that your anxiety spikes every time you're left on read, you can prepare for it. You can mentally rehearse applying reason the next time it happens. You are effectively doing reps in the gym for your mind, strengthening your ability to handle emotional turbulence before you're in the middle of the storm. This proactive training is what separates the Stoic from the simper. One is prepared for difficulty, the other is perpetually surprised and overwhelmed by it. Building this resilience means you stop fearing emotional pain because you trust in your own capacity to process it, learn from it, and emerge from it with your dignity fully intact. Now let's turn to a principle that serves as the ultimate anchor for your entire Stoic transformation, the seventh discipline, maintaining your purpose and mission. This is about recognizing that your life is about something far greater than any single relationship, and that this overarching purpose is the source of a self-worth that can never be shaken by another person's approval or rejection. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, constantly reminded himself of this. Amidst the immense pressures of ruling an empire, he would write in his private journal, "You need to get away from it all, to a pasture, a seaside, the mountains." But this is the most common and ridiculous of errors. Nowhere can a person find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than in his own mind. So constantly give yourself this retreat and renew yourself. His retreat wasn't a physical escape, it was a return to his core purpose. He knew that his value wasn't in his title or the adoration of the masses, but in his commitment to his duty, to justice, to reason, and to serving the common good. When your sense of value and identity is rooted in a personal mission, whether it's building a business, mastering a craft, contributing to your community, or creating art, you stop looking at potential partners as sources of validation. They become potential companions on your journey, not the destination itself. This creates a fundamental shift in your energy. Instead of approaching interactions with a hidden agenda of, "Will you complete me?" you operate from a place of, "This is who I am and where I'm headed." That is an incredibly attractive and grounded presence. People are naturally drawn to those who are passionate and directed. not because they want to be worshipped, but because they want to join something meaningful. Think about the difference in mindset. The person without a strong sense of purpose often sees a date as an audition. They are performing, hoping to be chosen for the role of boyfriend or girlfriend. Their entire evening is an exercise in seeking external validation. Conversely, the person with a mission sees the same date as a mutual exploration. They are assessing compatibility, not to fill a void, but to see if this other interesting human might be a good fit to share part of the journey. They are the ones doing the choosing just as much as they are being chosen. This isn't arrogance, it's the natural confidence that comes from knowing you have a life that is already full and meaningful with or without a partner. Your mission acts as a compass during times of emotional turbulence. When you experience rejection, instead of collapsing into a narrative of "I'm not good enough," you can process the event through a different lens. The Stoic question becomes, does this setback in any way prevent me from pursuing my purpose? The answer is almost always a resounding no. In fact, it often frees up more time and emotional energy to pour back into your mission. This perspective doesn't numb the sting of disappointment, but it does contain it, preventing it from infecting your entire sense of self. You can feel the sadness of a connection that didn't work out while simultaneously holding the unwavering knowledge that your primary reason for being remains untouched and as compelling as ever. This discipline is the ultimate cure for neediness because it addresses the root cause, the belief that you are missing something essential that another person must provide. When you are passionately engaged in a purpose that is larger than yourself, you generate your own sense of meaning and fulfillment from within. A relationship then becomes a wonderful shared celebration of that fulfillment, not the source of it. You stop simping because you are too busy building, creating, and serving to constantly check your phone for validation. You become the calm, centered, and intriguing person that others are naturally compelled to pursue, not because you're playing games, but because you are genuinely and captivatingly occupied with the grand and meaningful work of your own life. This eighth discipline is a powerful mental exercise that can instantly dissolve anxiety and put our romantic fixations into their proper, humble perspective. It's called practicing the view from above, and it was a favorite tool of the Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius. The exercise is simple in concept but profound in its effect. You consciously pull your mind's eye back far beyond your immediate surroundings and visualize your life, your problems, and your desires from a vast cosmic vantage point. You see your city as a tiny dot on the map, your country as a shape, the earth as a pale blue marble floating in the incomprehensible blackness of space. From this perspective, your frantic worry over a delayed text message or a missed date is revealed for what it truly is: a microscopic drama playing out on an unimaginably small stage. The goal isn't to make you feel insignificant or nihilistic. The purpose is to achieve a liberating sense of proportion. When you're deep in a simping spiral, your world shrinks until it contains only two people, you and the object of your affection. Every interaction is magnified to world-ending importance. Their tone of voice becomes a subject of intense analysis. A delayed reply becomes a 5-alarm fire in your psyche. This mental exercise is the antidote to that painful myopia. It forcibly expands your frame of reference, reminding you that you are part of a vast, ancient, and ongoing story. Your current romantic dilemma, no matter how intense it feels, is a single, fleeting sentence in the novel of your life, which is itself just a paragraph in the encyclopedia of human history. Let's try it right now. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Picture the room you're in. Now imagine pulling back through the ceiling, seeing your building from above. Pull back further, seeing your neighborhood, then your entire city. See the cars moving like ants, the buildings like tiny blocks. Keep going. See your country, then the continent, then the whole planet hanging in the silence of space. Now, from this vantage point, try to locate your specific problem. Try to find the source of that knot in your stomach. Can you even see it? The point is, you can't. From here, it doesn't register. This doesn't mean your feelings aren't real or valid. It means their power to consume you is an illusion created by standing too close to the canvas. Step back and the whole picture becomes clear. Applying this to dating is incredibly effective for cutting through neediness, that person you're idealizing. They are navigating their own equally complex and tiny life, with their own fears and insecurities on this same spinning rock. The outcome of your interaction with them will not alter the rotation of the Earth. This realization is not depressing. It is the source of tremendous relief and freedom. It allows you to engage with them not from a place of desperate high stakes, but from a place of calm curiosity. You can be genuinely interested in who they are without attaching your entire sense of worth to their opinion. You can play the game of connection without confusing it with a matter of life and death. Make this a regular practice, especially when you feel that familiar pull of anxiety. The next time you're refreshing your phone for the 10th time, stop. Take 3 deep breaths and perform the view from above, even if just for 15 seconds. See the triviality of the moment against the backdrop of eternity. This isn't about avoiding your feelings, it's about processing them with wisdom instead of fear. When you return to your normal perspective, you'll find the urgency has dissipated. You'll be able to put the phone down and return to your purposeful work, knowing that whatever will be, and that you, a conscious being on a journey through the cosmos, have far more important things to attend to than begging for the attention of another temporary traveler. Now we move to a discipline that cuts directly to the heart of that feeling of lack which fuels so much desperate behavior, cultivating contentment with enough. This Stoic practice is about systematically training your mind to appreciate and find deep satisfaction in what you already possess, rather than being perpetually focused on what you feel is missing. In the context of relationships, this means learning to derive your sense of wholeness from your own life, your friendships, your work, and your purpose, so that the attention or affection of a potential partner becomes a pleasant bonus rather than a vital necessity you feel you must chase. The ancient Stoics were masters of this. Seneca wrote extensively about the torment of always wanting more. He observed that a person who believes they need a certain level of wealth, status, or admiration to be happy will never actually be happy because that desire is a bottomless pit. The moment you acquire one thing, your desire simply shifts to the next. He argued that true wealth is not having more but wanting less. This isn't a call for poverty, it's a call for a radical shift in perspective. It's about moving from a mindset of scarcity, where you feel you are always lacking, to a mindset of abundance, where you recognize the incredible wealth of resources, relationships, and opportunities you already have at your disposal. Think about how this applies to the modern dating world. The simping mindset is the ultimate expression of scarcity. It operates on the belief that this one person is my only chance for happiness, or if I don't get their validation, I am nothing. This belief creates a frantic, anxious energy that is both painful to experience and unattractive to witness. Contentment with enough is the antidote. It's the daily practice of consciously inventorying the good already present in your life. Before you even think about reaching out to someone new, take a moment to genuinely appreciate the loyal friends who are already there for you, the family that supports you, the skills you've developed, the hobbies that bring you joy, and the simple comforts of your daily existence. This practice isn't just positive thinking, it's a recalibration of your emotional priorities. A powerful Stoic technique for this is the evening review, but with a specific focus on gratitude. Each night, instead of just examining your failures, actively list 3 to 5 things you already have that you would miss terribly if they were gone. This could be your health, your sense of sight, a warm bed, a meaningful conversation you had that day, or the freedom to pursue your interests. This ritual isn't about ignoring your desires for a relationship, it's about properly contextualizing them. When you deeply internalize that you are already living a life of immense value, The pursuit of romance transforms from a desperate hunt for completion into a calm exploration of potential addition. This cultivated sense of enough makes you a far healthier participant in any relationship. You stop placing the immense and unfair burden of being your sole source of happiness on another person. You engage from a place of fullness, which allows you to be genuinely generous with your time and affection without secretly keeping score or needing something specific in return. This is the foundation of a secure attachment style. You are able to enjoy someone's company for what it is in the present moment without constantly projecting into a fearful or idealized future. You become able to walk away from situations that aren't right because you know with absolute certainty that your core happiness remains secure back home, waiting for you in the life you've already built for yourself. Contentment with enough is the quiet confidence that allows you to stop chasing and start choosing. This 10th discipline is where the rubber truly meets the road in your journey from reactivity to mastery. It's the practice of creating a deliberate pause between the event that triggers you and your chosen response. The Stoics understood that our power doesn't lie in preventing life's inevitable stings and provocations, but in the sacred space we create before we answer them. As the philosopher Epictetus put it, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In the volatile world of modern dating, this tiny gap between stimulus and response is the difference between a man of dignity and a simping boy led by his impulses. Think of your mind as a vast, echoey hall. When a triggering event occurs, a text left on read, a critical comment, a cancelled plan, it's like someone shouting in that hall. Your initial emotional reaction is the immediate, unfiltered echo. It's loud, reactive, and often distorted. The practice of deliberate response is the simple but profound act of waiting for that first echo to fade into silence before you choose to speak. You allow the noise to settle so you can hear the clear, calm voice of your rational mind. This pause is where you reclaim your sovereignty. It's the moment you stop being a puppet jerked around by external events and become the puppeteer, consciously choosing which string to pull. Let's break this down with a painfully common scenario. You're seeing someone and they suddenly become distant. Their texts become short and infrequent. The stimulus is their withdrawal. The immediate, impulsive reaction, the first echo in the hall, is a tidal wave of anxiety and fear. It screams, "What did I do wrong? I'm losing them. I need to fix this now." This impulse, if followed, leads directly to the simping spiral. A flood of needy texts offers to change your plans, attempts to bargain for their attention. You are no longer acting, you are reacting from a place of perceived lack, and it broadcasts desperation. Now, apply the discipline of deliberate response. The stimulus is the same, their withdrawal. You feel the exact same initial surge of anxiety. That's natural and human. But instead of letting that feeling dictate your next move, you consciously insert the pause. You take a literal deep breath. You walk away from your phone. You remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. You cannot control their behavior, only your reaction to it. In that space, you move from the emotional part of your brain to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational judgment. You ask yourself Stoic questions. What is the most virtuous response here? What action would align with my self-respect? Is there any action even required at this moment? From this calm center, your response will be entirely different. Instead of a barrage of text, you might send one simple, dignified message after a day or two. "Hey, I've noticed things seem a bit different. No pressure at all, but I'm here if you want to chat." Or you might choose the most powerful response of all, no response. You might simply match their energy and refocus your attention entirely on your own mission and life, understanding that if they are truly interested, they will re-engage, and if not, you have saved yourself a world of needless anguish. This deliberate, chosen action comes from a place of abundance and self-respect, not lack. It communicates that your world continues to turn with or without their attention, and that is the most attractive quality of all. Making this a habit requires training. Start by practicing this pause in low-stakes environments. When a driver cuts you off, consciously choose not to react with anger. When a coworker makes a slightly irritating comment, take a breath before you reply. You are building the neural pathway of mindfulness, making it stronger and more accessible for when the high-stakes emotional triggers of dating inevitably arise. Each time you successfully create that space and choose a rational response over an impulsive one, you are not just handling a single situation, you are forging the unshakable character of a Stoic. You are becoming the man who cannot be shook because you alone decide how you will respond to the world. Now we arrive at a discipline that forms the very bedrock of a life free from neediness, developing independence of character. This Stoic principle is about forging an inner citadel so strong and self-sufficient that your sense of worth, stability, and direction comes from within, making you impervious to the shifting winds of external opinion and validation. The Stoics weren't advocating for a lonely, isolated existence. They were championing a profound form of emotional and psychological self-reliance that actually enables deeper, healthier connections with others because you are engaging from a place of choice, not dependency. Think of it like building your own internal power grid. Most people who fall into simping behavior are like houses connected to a single, external power source, the attention and approval of the person they're pursuing. When that source flickers or goes out, their entire world goes dark. They are left in an emotional blackout, desperate to get the power back on. The Stoic goal is to become your own power plant. You generate your own light, your own warmth, and your own energy from within. This doesn't mean you don't enjoy it when others contribute to your grid. It means you are never left in the dark if they choose to disconnect. Your fundamental well-being is off the grid, and that is the ultimate form of freedom. This independence of character is cultivated through daily practice. It's the conscious decision to rely on your own judgment for your self-esteem rather than outsourcing it. For instance, after a social interaction, instead of anxiously ruminating on what the other person thought of you, you perform a private audit based on your own values. You ask yourself Stoic questions. Did I act with integrity? Was I kind? Was I authentic? Your assessment of the interaction's success is based on your own virtuous actions, which are entirely within your control, not on the other person's unpredictable reaction, which is not. This shifts the entire locus of evaluation from outside yourself to within. You are no longer waiting for a report card from others. You are grading your own work based on a curriculum you wrote yourself. This self-reliance manifests powerfully in how you handle solitude. A person with dependent character dreads being alone. The silence feels like emptiness that must be filled by the presence or attention of another. The independent character, forged by Stoicism, sees solitude not as a void to be feared, but as a workshop for the soul. It is in these quiet moments that you reconnect with your purpose, reflect on your progress, and enjoy your own company. You might use that time to read, to work on a skill, to take a long walk without distraction. This practice proves to you concretely and repeatedly that you are sufficient unto yourself. You are not half of a whole searching for your missing piece. You are a complete individual capable of inviting another complete individual to share the journey. The beautiful paradox of this inner strength is that it makes you more attractive in the most genuine way possible. People are instinctively drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin and who don't emanate a desperate need for validation. Your independent character acts as a filter, naturally attracting those who are themselves secure and repelling those who are looking for someone to cling to or to control. You stop seeking completion through others because you know, from lived experience, that you are already complete. Any relationship that forms from this foundation is no longer a desperate pact between two people trying to fix each other's lack, but a voluntary and joyful alliance between two whole persons who simply enjoy sharing their already abundant lives. This 12th discipline asks us to engage in a form of radical honesty with ourselves. cutting through the stories we tell and the fantasies we project to see the unvarnished truth of a person or a situation. The Stoics called this practicing objective judgment, and it is the ultimate antidote to the intoxicating but dangerous habit of romanticizing others, which is the very engine of simping. When you build a fantasy version of someone in your mind, you are not falling for them. You are falling for a fictional character you have authored and cast them to play. The inevitable crash occurs when reality, as it always does, fails to conform to your script. The core Stoic idea here is to constantly separate the raw, factual data of an event from our subjective interpretation and emotional embellishment of it. Epictetus drew a clear line between an external impression, the bare-bones facts, and our assent to that impression, which is where we layer on our judgment, our story, and our emotional reaction. Simping is essentially a failure of this distinction. The objective impression might be, "She took 12 hours to reply to my text." That is a neutral fact. The simp immediately adds a desperate, self-defeating story. "She's not that into me. I must have said something wrong. I'm boring. I need to try harder to win her over." This story creates anxiety, neediness, and a loss of dignity. The individual practicing Stoic objective judgment receives the same impression but consciously withholds immediate assent. They examine the fact without the emotional filter. "She took 12 hours to reply to my text. That is all." Then they apply reason to generate a list of possible, neutral explanations that are just as likely, if not more likely, than the catastrophic one. Perhaps she was incredibly busy with work. Her phone might have died. She could have seen the message in the middle of a meeting and forgotten to reply immediately. She might be someone who is simply not glued to her phone. By generating these alternative narratives, you prevent your mind from locking onto a single, self-destructive story. You maintain emotional equilibrium because you have not yet decided what the event means. This practice requires you to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. It means actively looking for data that contradicts your idealized fantasy. Instead of only noticing how her laugh makes your heart flutter, you also make note of how she consistently talks over the waiter, a sign of possible self-absorption. Instead of fixating on his ambitious career goals, you also observe that he frequently cancels plans last minute, indicating a lack of respect for others' time. This isn't about becoming cynical or looking for flaws. It's about achieving a balanced, realistic view. You are gathering all the data, not just the data that supports your desired outcome. Implementing this starts with a simple but powerful mantra. What are the facts and what is the story I'm telling myself? The next time you feel that familiar ache of anxiety or desperation creeping in, pause and ask that question. Write it down if you have to. List the objective facts in one column, and in the other, list the anxious story your mind is spinning. The act of externalizing it onto paper often reveals the sheer absurdity of the narrative you've built on such a flimsy foundation. You reclaim the power to choose a different, more rational story, or to choose no story at all, to simply let the facts be until more information comes to light. This disciplined approach to perception ensures you are building connections with real people, not fictional idols, and it protects you from the devastating crash that follows every fantasy's inevitable collapse. This 13th discipline is perhaps the most transformative of them all, a profound mental shift that the Stoics called amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. This is not merely accepting or tolerating what happens to you. It is actively embracing every single event, every outcome, every twist and turn of life, including rejection, heartbreak, and solitude, as if you had chosen it yourself. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, later captured this idea perfectly. My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it. In the context of dating and overcoming simping, this concept is nothing short of revolutionary. Desperation is born from resistance. It is the internal screaming against a reality we don't want, the reality of being ignored, rejected, or alone. We fight against this fate, and in that struggle we lose all our power and composure. Amor Fati asks us to lay down our arms and instead welcome every outcome as a necessary and instructive part of our journey. When you can look at a romantic rejection and not see a personal failure but a crucial redirection, you have fundamentally changed the game. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as a student of life, eagerly learning from every experience it offers. Imagine you ask someone out and they say no. The typical, painful reaction is to see this as a negative event, a door slamming shut. Amor Fati reframes it entirely. You can learn to love this no for the freedom it instantly provides. It frees you from wasting months of emotional energy on someone who wasn't right for you. It gives you clear, immediate feedback that allows you to redirect your attention instantly and without regret. It strengthens your resilience for the next attempt. It is a perfect and necessary part of your story, steering you away from a wrong path and toward the right one. When you can genuinely feel gratitude for the rejection, any trace of desperation evaporates. You are no longer begging for a specific outcome because you have learned to find value and meaning in every outcome. This practice transforms your presence in all interactions. When you are no longer terrified of a negative result, you become infinitely more authentic and confident. You stop walking on eggshells trying to manage the other person's impression of you. You speak your mind more freely, you express your genuine interests, and you show your true personality without a filter. Why? Because you have already made peace with whatever their reaction might be. If they like the real you, that's wonderful. If they don't, that's also wonderful. It simply means they weren't your person, and you have loved that truth as well. This unshakable acceptance is the source of a calm, magnetic confidence that is completely unforced. People feel this relaxed authenticity, and they are drawn to it because it feels safe and real. Cultivating Amor Fati is a daily practice of mental reframing. It begins by consciously challenging your initial negative judgments. When something doesn't go your way, instead of complaining or falling into self-pity, you actively seek out the benefit. A first date gets cancelled, love it. It gives you an unexpected free evening to work on your project or reconnect with a friend. Someone you're talking to ghosts you. Love it. It reveals their character early and saves you from greater pain down the line. You find yourself single for a longer period than you'd like. Love it. This is your dedicated training time, your opportunity to build an unshakable life and character so that when the right person finally arrives, you are truly ready for them, not needy for them. By repeatedly exercising this mental muscle, you rewire your brain to default to acceptance and curiosity instead of resistance and fear. You embrace your entire fate, not just the pleasant parts, and in doing so, you become the calm, confident architect of your life, never again a desperate beggar at someone else's door. This 14th discipline brings us to the very core of the Stoic operating system, the moment where we truly seize control of our emotional destiny. It's the practice known as the discipline of assent. In simple terms, assent is the act of giving your approval or agreement to an initial impression that enters your mind. The Stoics realize that the vast majority of our suffering isn't created by external events themselves, but by our swift, unexamined, and automatic agreement with our knee-jerk interpretations of those events. Mastering this internal gatekeeping process is how you finally stop the mental domino effect that ends in simping. Think of your mind as a sophisticated security checkpoint for thoughts. An impression, let's say, seeing that the person you're dating is active on social media but hasn't replied to your message arrives at the gate. This impression is just raw data, a neutral fact. It has no inherent emotional charge. The undisciplined mind, the simp's mind, instantly grants this impression of VIP pass. It doesn't stop it for questioning. It immediately agrees with the worst possible interpretation. They are ignoring me, they don't value me, I must not be good enough. This automatic assent triggers the entire painful cascade of anxiety, neediness, and desperate action. The discipline of assent is the practice of being the vigilant, skeptical security guard at that gate. Instead of waving every alarming impression through, you stop it. You hold it up to the light of reason. You examine it with a calm curiosity. You ask, is this impression an objective fact, or is it my own fearful story layered on top of the fact? The objective fact is they are online and haven't replied. That is all. Everything else, the story about being ignored or devalued, is a narrative you are constructing. The Stoic guard refuses to grant assent to that narrative. Instead, they generate alternative, more rational, and often more likely explanations. Perhaps they are quickly checking notifications while in line for coffee and will reply properly later. Maybe they saw the message and are thinking of a thoughtful response. It's possible they are busy with something important and will get to it when they have a moment. By withholding your immediate assent from the catastrophic interpretation, you rob it of its power to dictate your emotions and actions. You create that crucial pause, that space for choice. You move from being a reactive animal to a reasoning human. This doesn't mean you become a naive optimist who always assumes the best. It means you become a realist who refuses to assume the worst without sufficient evidence. You train yourself to only grant your full assent to judgments that are proven, rational, and within your control. The behavior of another person is never fully within your control, so your judgments about their intentions should always be held lightly and questioned rigorously. Applying this to modern dating is like installing a mental firewall against neediness. That sinking feeling when you see a read receipt with no immediate reply. That's the impression arriving at the gate. The old you would have assented immediately to "I'm being rejected" and fired off a follow-up text. The new you, the practitioner of the discipline of assent, intercepts that feeling. You acknowledge the impression but challenge its validity. You might even laugh at your mind's tendency to catastrophize. You decide to withhold your judgment and your text until you have more information. This simple act of pausing and questioning is the ultimate power move. It keeps you centered in your own dignity and prevents you from acting out of a fear that is, 99 times out of 100, completely fictional. You stop simping because you finally understand that your peace of mind is too valuable to be stolen by an unexamined thought. Now we reach a foundational pillar of the entire Stoic philosophy, a discipline that reframes your entire understanding of success and value. This is the practice of cultivating virtue as the sole good. For the Stoics, the ultimate aim of life wasn't wealth, fame, pleasure, or even the perfect relationship. It was arete, a life lived with excellence of character, expressed through the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. They argued that these virtues are the only things that are truly, inherently good because their value can never be taken from you by external circumstance. Everything else, your dating status, your social media likes, the approval of others, they classified as preferred indifference. They might be nice to have, but they are not good in and of themselves because they are fragile, fleeting, and not entirely within your control. Making this mental shift is the ultimate liberation from the need for validation. Think about it this way. If your sense of self-worth is tied to getting a second date or receiving a flattering message, you have placed your happiness in the hands of fortune. You are building your house on sand, but if your sense of self-worth is tied to your own virtuous character, to your commitment to acting with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, you are building your house on an unshakable foundation of granite. No one can take that from you. A rejection cannot diminish your courage. Being ghosted cannot corrupt your justice. A period of solitude cannot weaken your temperance. In fact, these challenging external events become the very gym where your virtues are tested and strengthened. This is why the Stoic sage is serene in any situation. Their treasure is internal and is therefore invulnerable to the chaos of the external world. Let's break down how each of these four virtues directly dismantles the simping mindset. First, wisdom. This is the practical wisdom to see the world as it is, not as you fear or wish it to be. It's the virtue that powers the objective judgment we discussed earlier. In dating, wisdom helps you discern between a genuine connection and a toxic attachment. It allows you to correctly interpret signals instead of spinning anxious fantasies. The wise person doesn't ignore red flags because they're infatuated. They see them clearly and adjust their course accordingly. Your pursuit of wisdom makes you a better judge of character, protecting you from investing in people who don't deserve your energy. Next, courage. This isn't just physical bravery. It's the moral courage to do what is right even when it is difficult or frightening. This is the anti-simping virtue par excellence. Courage is what allows you to be authentically yourself on a date, even if you think your true interests might not be cool. It gives you the strength to express your interest directly and clearly without games or manipulation. And most importantly, it gives you the fortitude to walk away from a situationship that disrespects you, even when every insecure fiber of your being is screaming to stay and beg for crumbs. Courage is the muscle that moves you from knowing what is right to actually doing it. Then there is justice. In the Stoic sense, this means fulfilling your duty to others and to the community. It's about treating everyone with fairness, kindness, and respect. This virtue completely reorients your approach to relationships. Instead of seeing a potential partner as an object to be acquired for your validation, you see them as a human being deserving of your honesty and integrity. Justice is what prevents you from leading someone on because you're lonely. It compels you to communicate your intentions clearly and to treat even a rejection with grace. When you make justice your goal, your focus shifts from "what can I get" to "what can I contribute." This mindset of generous integrity is magnetic. Finally, temperance or self-discipline. This is the mastery over your own desires and impulses. It is the virtue that allows you to maintain the deliberate pause between stimulus and response. Temperance is what stops you from sending that drunken text at 2 in the morning. It's the power to maintain your own schedule and priorities instead of dropping everything at a moment's notice for someone who hasn't earned that level of access. It is the disciplined practice of moderation in all things, ensuring that your desire for connection or pleasure never overrules your rational judgment. A person with temperance is in command of themselves and therefore cannot be manipulated by the promise of external rewards. When you consciously make the cultivation of these four virtues your primary goal in life, a miraculous thing happens. The need for external validation simply withers away. You no longer wake up and check your phone to see if someone else has given you permission to feel valuable that day. You wake up and ask yourself a different set of questions. How can I act with wisdom in my work today? Where can I practice courage in facing a difficult task? How can I be just and fair in my dealings with others? What exercise in temperance can I perform to strengthen my self-control? Your metric for a successful day is no longer whether you got a match or reply. It's whether you lived up to your own virtuous ideals. This internal scorecard is the source of a self-worth that is permanent, reliable, and completely independent of anyone else's opinion. You become a man of character, and that is the most attractive quality in the world. Now we come to a Stoic discipline that has the raw, undeniable power to instantly vaporize social anxiety and the need for approval. This is the practice of memento mori, the remembrance of death. At first glance, it might sound morbid or dark, but for the Stoics, it was anything but. It was the ultimate tool for creating a life of urgency, authenticity, and profound gratitude. The phrase translates to "remember you must die," and its purpose is not to make you fearful, but to make you incredibly focused on what truly matters in the limited time you have. When you genuinely internalize the fact that your time here is finite and could end at any moment, the opinions of others and your desperate need for their validation suddenly seem like the most trivial of concerns. Think about the sheer weight we give to a potential rejection. We agonize over it, we lose sleep, we craft elaborate strategies to avoid it. But when you hold the perspective of memento mori, you are forced to ask a simple, piercing question. On my last day on earth, will I be lying on my deathbed wishing I had spent more time worrying about whether someone texted me back? The answer is a thunderous, obvious no. You will be thinking about whether you loved deeply, whether you were true to yourself, whether you lived a life of purpose and courage. This practice forcibly strips away all the pettiness and fear, leaving only what is essential. It is the ultimate lens for bringing your life into crystal clear focus. Let's apply this directly to the fear that fuels simping. You're hesitating to express your genuine interest in someone because you're afraid of looking foolish or being rejected. Now invoke memento mori. Remember that you and they and everyone you know will not be here one day. This conversation, this moment of vulnerability, is a tiny, fleeting bubble in the vast ocean of time. Does it really make sense to waste it hiding behind a mask? The remembrance of death is the great permission slip to be authentic. It whispers, you don't have time for games. You don't have time to pretend. If you feel something, say it. If you are interested, show it. Be kind, be clear, and be yourself, because the clock is ticking, and regret is a far heavier burden than rejection. This practice also cultivates a deep and lasting gratitude for the connections you do have. Instead of fixating on the one person who isn't giving you attention, memento mori turns your gaze toward the friends and family who are already there. It makes you appreciate a good conversation for the miracle that it is a temporary alignment of two conscious beings in the vastness of existence. You start to see every interaction as a gift, not an audition. This gratitude fills you up, making you less needy and more present. You engage with people not to extract validation from them, but to share a genuine, fleeting moment of connection, which is so much more meaningful and attractive. Integrating this into your daily life can be as simple as a momentary mental check. Before you send a needy text or spiral into anxiety, pause and touch a wall. Feel its solidity. Remind yourself that one day you will not be here to touch this wall. This person you're anxious about will not be here either. All that will remain is the echo of the choices you made, whether you acted with courage and authenticity or from a place of fear and desperation. This isn't a sad thought, it is a liberating one. It lifts the tremendous, self-imposed pressure of taking every single social interaction so seriously. It allows you to engage lightly, playfully, and honestly because you understand that in the grand, cosmic scale, we are all just temporary guests at the same party, and the only sensible thing to do is to be a genuine, interesting, and kind one while we're here. This journey of self-mastery brings us to the very heart of Stoic defense against neediness, the 17th discipline, developing your inner citadel. Imagine your mind as a magnificent, impenetrable fortress. Inside its walls reside your core values, your self-respect, and your unshakable peace. Outside the walls rages the weather of external events, the shifting opinions of others, the chaos of dating, the sting of rejection. The practice of building this inner stronghold ensures that no matter how fierce the storm gets on the outside, the core of who you are remains calm, secure, and completely undiminished. When your sense of worth is housed safely within this citadel, the approval or disapproval of another person becomes like weather against stone. It may be noticed, but it cannot cause the structure to tremble. The concept of the inner citadel was central to the Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, who literally ruled the world from a palace but understood that his true fortress had to be built within. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This strength is not a rigid arrogance. It is a flexible, resilient confidence that comes from knowing your value is not up for debate or dependent on a popular vote. It is an internally generated reality. For the chronic people-pleaser or the recovering simp, this is the ultimate goal: to reach a state where your emotional well-being is sourced from your own character and actions, making you virtually immune to the need to seek constant validation. Think about how this transforms your experience of rejection. Without an inner citadel, a romantic rejection feels like a direct assault on your entire identity. It can shatter you because you have no defensive walls. Your self-esteem is out in the open, vulnerable to every attack. But with a well-fortified self, that same rejection is perceived entirely differently. It is seen as an external event that says nothing about your inherent worth. It is simply information about compatibility, a mismatch of wants or needs. The event happens outside the walls, and you, safe inside your citadel, can observe it calmly, learn from it if necessary, and then let it pass without letting it define you. Your value was never on the line, only a potential connection was. So how do you actually build this fortress? It is constructed brick by brick through the daily practice of the very disciplines we've been discussing. Each time you practice the dichotomy of control, you are laying a foundation stone, clearly marking what is yours to manage and what is not. Every session of negative visualization adds to the walls, proving to yourself that you can handle any outcome. Cultivating virtue provides the sturdy architecture, and the discipline of assent serves as the guarded gate, determining which thoughts are allowed entry. This isn't an abstract idea, it is the cumulative result of consistent mental training. You are quite literally building a psychological structure that can withstand any siege of doubt, loneliness, or external criticism. The most beautiful result of this work is the complete elimination of needy behavior. Neediness is at its core a desperate attempt to get someone else to furnish the internal security you lack. It's trying to borrow someone else's citadel because you haven't built your own. But when your inner fortress is strong, you engage with others from a place of wholeness and abundance. You don't cling, you connect. You don't manipulate, you offer. You are free to be authentically yourself because your peace does not hinge on their reaction. This makes you incredibly attractive in the most genuine way possible, not because you're following a script, but because you are radiating the quiet, powerful confidence of a person who is already home within themselves, simply curious to see who might be worthy of an invitation inside. Think of your mind as a cluttered room filled with dusty boxes of desires, half-finished projects of need, and piles of expectations you've collected over the years. Simping is the frantic state of someone trapped in this clutter, desperately trying to arrange things to please a visitor instead of simply cleaning the room for themselves. The 18th Stoic discipline, the art of subtraction, is the conscious and liberating process of taking out the trash. It is the practice of systematically removing unnecessary desires, emotional attachments, and the desperate need for specific outcomes in order to create space for clarity, freedom, and genuine confidence. This isn't about renouncing the world, it's about decluttering your mind so you can engage with it more effectively. The Stoics were masters of this minimalist approach to desire. They understood that a person who wants very little is, in a practical sense, immensely wealthy because they are almost impossible to disappoint. Seneca put it brilliantly when he wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." The poverty that drives simping is not a lack of affection from others, it is the bottomless craving for it. This craving creates a state of perpetual lack where you feel you are always missing something essential. The art of subtraction is the process of identifying that craving and deliberately letting it go, realizing that the thing you thought you needed was actually the very weight holding you underwater. Let's apply this directly to the dynamics of modern dating. The average person enters the arena with a long list of attachments: the attachment to a specific person liking them, the attachment to getting a second date, the attachment to avoiding the feeling of loneliness, the attachment to being perceived a certain way. Each of these attachments is like a hook in your flesh, and the other person holds the lines. They have the power to jerk you around because you have given them that power by your investment in the outcome. The practice of subtraction is the careful, conscious act of removing each of those hooks. You are not removing your intention or your effort. You are removing your desperate emotional investment in the result. Start by subtracting the desire for a specific person's validation. This sounds radical, but it's incredibly practical. It doesn't mean you stop liking them or wanting to connect. It means you stop needing their approval to feel okay. You consciously decide, their opinion of me is their business. My self-worth is my business, and I will not outsource it. When you subtract this need, your entire presence changes. You stop monitoring their every word for clues about how they feel about you. You stop altering your personality to fit what you think they want. You become more relaxed, more authentic, and paradoxically far more attractive because you are no longer emitting the frequency of neediness. Next, subtract the desire for a guaranteed outcome. Go into interactions with a spirit of exploration rather than extraction. Your goal is not to get a date or get a relationship. Your goal is to discover if there is a genuine connection and shared values. This is a massive shift in energy. When you subtract the pressure of a specific result, you free yourself to be genuinely curious about the other person. You ask better questions, you listen more intently, you are fully present in the conversation instead of being lost in a future fantasy or a past anxiety. If the connection isn't there, you can walk away without a sense of crushing failure because your primary goal, to explore and act with integrity, was already achieved the moment you walked in the door. This art of subtraction extends to your lifestyle as well. Simplify your schedule. Subtract the endless scrolling on dating apps that leaves you feeling drained and commodified. Instead, invest that time in activities that build real confidence and skill. Subtract the habit of endlessly analyzing texts and social media cues. That mental energy is a precious resource. Reclaim it and pour it back into your mission and your passions. As you subtract these energy-draining habits, you create a vacuum that naturally fills with self-respect and a calm, magnetic assurance. You stop trying to project confidence through boastful stories or flashy appearances, and instead you embody it through a relaxed, unneedy presence that comes from having nothing left to prove. The ultimate freedom isn't found in acquiring the perfect relationship. It's found in subtracting the desperate need for one, realizing that you are already complete, and any connection that forms will be a welcome addition to an already abundant life, not the foundation of it. Now we arrive at a discipline that acts as the serene, unshakable center of the entire Stoic journey, the very anchor that prevents your emotional state from being tossed around by the turbulent seas of modern dating. This is the 19th practice, cultivating equanimity. In simple terms, equanimity is a state of psychological stability and composure that is undisturbed by experience of or exposure to emotions, pain, or other phenomena that might cause others to lose their balance. For the Stoic, this isn't about becoming an emotionless robot. It's about developing a profound inner calm that allows you to feel emotions without being enslaved by them, to experience the ups and downs of connection without letting them derail your entire sense of self. This balanced, even-keeled approach is the absolute antithesis of the simping cycle, which is defined by dramatic highs and crushing lows dictated entirely by another person's actions. The simp lives on a brutal emotional roller coaster they didn't design and cannot stop. A flirty text sends them soaring into a euphoric high where they construct entire future fantasies. A delayed reply plunges them into an anxious low where they question their entire worth. Their emotional well-being is entirely reactive, a slave to the push and pull of external validation. This volatility is not only painful for the individual, but it's also transparently obvious to others, broadcasting a deep instability that is inherently unattractive. Equanimity, in stark contrast, is the practice of getting off that roller coaster and planting your feet firmly on the stable ground of your own character. From this grounded place, you can observe the arrival of a positive or negative event with the same calm curiosity, understanding that both are temporary and neither defines you. So how does Stoicism build this unshakable balance? It begins with the foundational understanding that our emotional turbulence is almost never caused by the external event itself, but by our judgment about that event. The Stoic doesn't seek to avoid life's experiences. They seek to change their relationship to their judgments about those experiences. Imagine you're walking down the street and someone you've been dating walks by with another person. The event is neutral. The simping mind immediately assigns a catastrophic judgment. This is a disaster. They are rejecting me. I am being replaced. This judgment triggers a tsunami of jealousy, insecurity, and pain. The individual practicing equanimity receives the same visual data but consciously withholds immediate judgment. They observe the fact without layering a self-destructive story on top of it. They might note a feeling of surprise or curiosity, but they don't allow that feeling to escalate into a full-blown narrative of abandonment. This is where the technical Stoic practice of the discipline of assent becomes your most powerful tool for cultivating equanimity. You learn to treat every initial reactive impression not as a command to be obeyed, but as a suggestion to be examined. That initial pang of anxiety when you see a read receipt isn't a truth. It's a piece of data to be analyzed by your rational faculty. You create a deliberate pause, and in that space you ask Socratic questions of your own fear. Is this thought true? Is it absolutely certain? What is another, more neutral or even positive way to view this situation? By interrogating your impulses instead of instantly obeying them, you drain them of their power to hijack your emotional state. You are no longer a passive passenger in your own mind. You become the calm, discerning pilot. This practiced equanimity transforms your presence in relationships. Instead of swinging between neediness when you feel you're losing them and aloofness when you feel secure, you maintain a consistent, grounded demeanor. This doesn't mean you are bland or unenthusiastic. It means your warmth and engagement are not contingent on your latest hit of validation. You can enjoy a wonderful date without mentally writing your wedding vows, and you can experience a rejection without writing your obituary. This emotional consistency is incredibly reassuring and attractive. It signals to others that you are a stable, reliable person whose mood isn't a minefield they have to tiptoe through. It creates a safe space for genuine connection to grow because both people feel free to be themselves without triggering an emotional avalanche. Ultimately, cultivating equanimity is about reclaiming your inner weather system. You stop allowing other people to determine whether it's sunny or storming inside your mind. You take responsibility for your own climate. The result is a profound sense of freedom. A delayed text becomes a minor curiosity, not a crisis. A disagreement becomes an opportunity for discussion, not a threat to your self-esteem. You engage with the world from a place of calm choice, not frantic reaction. This steady, balanced presence is the final death knell for simping behavior because it proves through lived experience that your worth was never out there to be found or lost in the first place. It was always right here in your unwavering ability to choose your response, to meet whatever comes with a calm mind and a steady heart. While we've already touched on the power of negative visualization, this 20th discipline invites us to apply it with laser focus to the specific arena of relationships, transforming it from a general exercise into a precise tool for emotional fortification. This practice, known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of troubles, is not about expecting the worst to happen. It's about being so thoroughly prepared for potential difficulties that they lose their power to shock, destabilize, or trigger desperate behavior. It's the mental equivalent of a fire drill. You calmly walk through the emergency exits so that if a real alarm ever sounds, you don't panic and act recklessly, but instead respond with clarity and purpose. In the context of dating, this is a revolutionary shift. The simping mindset is terrified of even considering negative outcomes. It operates on a foundation of hope and fantasy, desperately trying to manifest a perfect connection by refusing to look at any potential cracks. This approach is incredibly fragile. The first sign of trouble, a disagreement, a moment of disinterest, a competing priority, sends the entire fantasy crashing down, often leading to a frantic, needy overcorrection. Premeditatio malorum dismantles this fragility by systematically exposing the fantasy to the light of reality. It asks a simple but profound question. If this thing I want doesn't work out, or if it becomes difficult, can I handle it? And by walking through the answer in your mind, you prove to yourself in advance that you absolutely can. Let's make this intensely practical. You're about to go on a third date with someone you're really starting to like. The hopeful, fantasy-based approach would be to imagine everything going perfectly, already picturing a future together. The premeditatio malorum approach happens before you even leave the house. You take 60 seconds to calmly and rationally consider what could go wrong. She might be late, the conversation could feel forced and awkward. You might discover a fundamental value mismatch. She might not feel a romantic connection and see this as a final, friendly meet-up. You consciously walk yourself through each of these scenarios, not to dwell on them, but to accept their possibility, and most importantly, to pre-plan your own graceful, dignified response. This mental rehearsal is what creates unshakable poise. If she is late, instead of feeling immediately anxious and sending a string of "Is everything okay?" text, you've already foreseen this. You calmly order a drink, people watch, and enjoy a few minutes of solitude, secure in the knowledge that her punctuality is not a reflection of your worth. If the conversation hits a lull, you don't internally panic and start rambling. You allow the silence to exist, knowing that not every moment needs to be filled, and your comfort with the quiet actually demonstrates confidence. If she gently says she doesn't see a romantic future, you've already rehearsed accepting this with grace. Your response isn't one of shocked desperation or negotiation. It's a simple, "I understand, and I really appreciate your honesty. I've enjoyed our time together and wish you all the best." This kind of response, born from prepared acceptance, leaves everyone's dignity intact and often creates more respect than a perfect date ever could. This practice fundamentally alters your energy. When you're no longer subconsciously terrified of things going wrong, you become infinitely more relaxed and present. You stop trying to control the interaction to ensure a specific outcome, and instead become genuinely curious about how it will actually unfold. This lack of pressure is palpable and makes you dramatically more attractive. People feel safe and comfortable around those who aren't placing immense, unspoken expectations on them. By preparing your mind for any outcome, you free yourself to truly enjoy the process, not as a high-stakes audition, but as a fascinating exploration of human connection, where every result, whether a passionate yes or a respectful no, is simply valuable data on your journey toward finding a truly compatible partner. This 21st discipline moves us from inner resilience to outer action, focusing on how Stoic principles empower you to establish and maintain rational boundaries. In the chaotic world of modern dating, boundaries are often misunderstood as walls built from fear or past hurt. The Stoic approach is entirely different. A Stoic boundary is not an emotional reaction. It is a rational, pre-considered limit you set on how others may treat you, derived not from insecurity, but from a profound respect for your own time, energy, and moral character. It is the practical application of the dichotomy of control, clearly defining what behavior you will and will not accept in your life, because you understand that while you cannot control others, you absolutely control what you participate in. The simp and the people-pleaser share a fatal flaw. They have porous or non-existent boundaries because they prioritize the potential for external validation over their own internal comfort and values. They say yes when they want to say no. They tolerate disrespectful behavior because they fear that enforcing a boundary will cost them the connection. This is a catastrophic error in Stoic calculus. The Stoics would argue that any connection requiring the sacrifice of your self-respect is not a connection worth having. It is a transaction where you are selling your dignity at a loss. A rational boundary, therefore, is not a rejection of others, it is an affirmation of yourself. It is you stating calmly and clearly the conditions under which you are willing to engage because you know your own worth is not negotiable. Let's translate this into a concrete scenario. Imagine someone you're dating begins to consistently cancel plans at the last minute with vague excuses. The people-pleasing response is to immediately say, "Oh, no problem at all." Totally understand, while internally feeling hurt and devalued. This response communicates that your time is worthless and their attention is a rare commodity you are grateful to receive, even in crumbs. The Stoic, who has pre-established a rational boundary around respect for time, responds differently. They might wait for the pattern to emerge and then say, calmly and without accusation, "I've noticed plans have been shifting at the last minute a few times. I totally understand life gets busy, but I need to know I can rely on the plans I make. Going forward, if we make a plan, let's both do our best to keep it. If something comes up, just let me know with a bit more notice if you can." This statement is not an attack. It is a clear, reasonable, and dignified expression of a personal standard. The power of this approach lies in its rationality. It is not born from a place of emotional hurt or a desire to punish. It is a simple statement of cause and effect, much like a natural law. If you behave in X way, my response will be Y. This removes the emotional charge from the interaction and makes it about mutual respect rather than personal rejection. You are not telling the other person they are bad. You are simply informing them of the rules of engagement for interacting with you. Their reaction to this boundary is incredibly revealing. A mature, respectful person will apologize and adjust their behavior. A person who reacts with anger, defensiveness, or guilt-tripping has just shown you they were never interested in a relationship of equals. They were interested in a dynamic where they held all the power and you did all the accommodating. The boundary, in this case, has served its perfect purpose. It has filtered out incompatibility and saved you immense future pain. Implementing this requires you to know your own values intimately. What for you constitutes respect? Is it timely communication? Is it honesty about intentions? Is it reciprocity of effort? Your boundaries should be the guardians of these values. Write them down if you must. Decide in advance what your lines are, so you aren't trying to figure it out in the heat of the moment when you're emotionally invested. This preparation is what gives you the courage to uphold them. When you know your boundary is based on the rational bedrock of your core principles and not a fleeting emotional state, you can enforce it with a calm certainty that cannot be shaken by another person's disappointment or attempts to manipulate you. You stop fearing the loss of someone who disrespects you, and you start attracting those who share your values of mutual respect and integrity. This 20-second discipline brings us to the very heart of Stoic practice in the real world, the discipline of action. This is where philosophy meets the pavement. It's one thing to understand Stoic theory intellectually, but it is something entirely different to live it through your consistent daily actions. For the Stoics, right action taken in accordance with nature and virtue was the ultimate expression of wisdom. It's not about what you feel or what you think, it's about what you do. In the realm of dating and relationships, this discipline is the crucial bridge that connects your internal resilience to your external behavior, ensuring that you move through the world with a dignity that is both felt and seen. The core of this idea is acting according to your nature as a rational, social being. The Stoics believed that our highest purpose is to live virtuously, using our reason to contribute to the common welfare. This might sound abstract, but it has incredibly practical implications for how you pursue romance. Acting according to nature means your actions are guided by your core values: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, rather than being jerked around by every passing impulsive desire or fearful emotion. It's the difference between pursuing someone because you have a calm, reasoned belief that you share values and could build a good life together, versus pursuing them because you feel a desperate, anxious need to avoid being alone. The action might look similar on the surface, but the internal motivation, and thus the energy you project, is worlds apart. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you feel a powerful attraction to someone. The impulsive, desire-driven action, fueled by the fear of missing out, might be to shower them with excessive compliments, to try and buy their affection with gifts, or to pretend to share all their interests in a transparent attempt to win them over. These are simping actions. They come from a place of lack and a frantic need to acquire external validation. The discipline of action, however, demands that you pause and subject that initial impulse to the light of virtue. You would ask yourself Stoic questions. Is this action wise? Is it authentic to who I am? Does it demonstrate courage or cowardice? Is it just and fair to both of us? From this place of reasoned reflection, your actions become entirely different. Instead of fawning over them, you might choose the courageous action of expressing your interest clearly and directly, without games or manipulation, and then calmly accepting their response, whatever it may be. Instead of pretending to love hiking because they do, you might demonstrate the wisdom of authenticity by saying, I actually prefer museums to mountains, but I'd love to hear about what you enjoy so much about it. This action respects both your own truth and their individuality. Instead of blowing up their phone when you feel anxious, you practice the temperance of deliberate inaction, choosing to focus on your own work and trusting the process. Every one of these choices, small and large, is a brick in the foundation of your character. This discipline transforms your entire approach from one of taking to one of contributing. The simp acts to get something: validation, attention, a relationship. The Stoic acts to express something: their character, their values, their integrity. This shift is everything. When you ask someone out, you are not performing a high-stakes maneuver to extract a yes. You are offering an invitation for them to join you in a mutual exploration. If they decline, you haven't failed. You have simply gathered valuable information. Your dignified action was its own reward because it was a true expression of your courage and honesty. The outcome was always in the domain of things not up to you, but your choice to act virtuously was entirely within your power, and that is where your worth truly resides. By focusing relentlessly on the quality of your own actions, you ensure that no matter what happens externally, you never have to look back with regret, knowing you always conducted yourself with the integrity and self-respect of a man who knows his own value. Authenticity can feel like a dangerous gamble in the modern dating world, where the pressure to present a polished, perfect version of ourselves is immense. We often hide our true interests, soften our opinions, and mirror the other person's personality, all in a desperate attempt to be liked. We trade our genuine selves for a carefully curated performance, believing that this persona is more likely to win affection. But Stoicism offers a radically different path, one that values integrity over impression and truth over tactic. This 23rd discipline, cultivating authentic expression, is not about developing a new skill, but about courageously removing the mask you've been wearing. It is the practice of aligning your words and actions with your core values, regardless of the potential social cost, understanding that any connection built on a false premise is doomed from the start. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature, which for a rational human being means living with honesty and integrity. They would argue that using manipulative tactics, playing hard to get, giving backhanded compliments, or pretending to be someone you're not, is not only immoral but also incredibly foolish. It's a short-term strategy with a long-term cost. Even if it works initially and you attract someone, you haven't attracted them for you. You've attracted them for a character you're performing, a role you will eventually grow tired of playing. As Epictetus pointedly asked, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? He is challenging us to stop settling for the cheap reward of superficial validation and to start insisting on the profound reward of genuine connection, which can only be built on a foundation of truth. Think about the common dating advice that encourages game playing. Wait a specific number of hours before replying to a text. Never express your interest too clearly. Always let the other person wonder. From a Stoic perspective, this is the behavior of a slave, not a free man. You are enslaving yourself to a strategy, allowing a rulebook to dictate your actions instead of your own rational judgment and character. You are also fundamentally being dishonest. You are manipulating the other person's perceptions and emotions to engineer a specific outcome. The Stoic alternative is breathtakingly simple and requires far more courage. Be direct, be clear, and be honest. If you want to reply to a text, reply when it is rational and convenient for you to do so. If you are interested in someone, express that interest in a respectful and unambiguous way. Your actions are no longer calculated moves in a game. They are genuine expressions of your interest and your character. This practice of authentic expression transforms your energy completely. When you are not monitoring every word to ensure it fits a strategic narrative, you become more present and relaxed in conversations. You listen better because you're not busy formulating your next calculated response. You ask more interesting questions because you are genuinely curious, not because you read that it's a good technique. This relaxed, genuine presence is incredibly attractive because it is so rare. It puts the other person at ease, allowing them to also let their guard down and be themselves. You create a space for a real connection to form, rather than a negotiation between two fictional personas. Of course, this path requires immense vulnerability. You are choosing to show your true self with all its quirks and potential flaws, and accepting that it might not be what the other person is looking for. That is the risk, but the Stoic reframes this risk not as a danger but as the entire point. A rejection of your authentic self is not a failure, it is a massive success. It is the universe efficiently filtering out incompatibility and saving you months or years of misery trying to maintain a facade for someone who doesn't actually love the real you. A rejection of a false persona, on the other hand, is utterly meaningless. It tells you nothing about your actual worth or compatibility. By choosing authenticity, you ensure that every ounce of interest you receive is directed at the real you, making it infinitely more valuable and sustainable. You stop collecting admirers for a character and start attracting genuine interest in the person you actually are. Now we arrive at a deceptively simple yet profoundly liberating Stoic practice, the 24th discipline, implementing the reserve clause. This ancient technique involves mentally appending the phrase, fate permitting, or the gods willing, to any plan or desire you hold. In our modern context, it translates to holding your intentions and expectations with an open hand, consciously acknowledging that while you can control your efforts and your actions, the final outcome is always subject to factors beyond your command. This isn't about fostering a sense of hopelessness. It's about cultivating a mature and flexible mindset that radically reduces suffering by dissolving our rigid attachment to how we think things must turn out, especially in the delicate dance of human connection. Think about how we typically approach a potential relationship. We meet someone intriguing, and almost immediately, our minds begin constructing a detailed blueprint for the future. We imagine specific dates, meeting friends, and a shared path forward. We become secretly and then desperately attached to this single, specific storyline. The reserve clause is the conscious act of writing that entire blueprint in pencil, not ink. It is the mental footnote that says, "I will ask her out, fate permitting." We will have a wonderful time on this date, fate permitting. This could turn into something meaningful, fate permitting. This tiny linguistic shift in your internal dialogue creates a crucial space between your hope and your expectation, protecting you from the devastation that occurs when reality inevitably diverges from your personal script. Consider a practical example. You've mustered the courage to plan an elaborate second date dinner at a fantastic restaurant you've been wanting to try, followed by a walk through a beautiful part of the city. You're excited and invested in the plan. The simping mindset attaches its entire emotional state to the flawless execution of this plan. If she texts to say she has a headache and needs to reschedule, it feels like a personal catastrophe. Your evening is ruined, your confidence is shaken, and you spiral into anxiety about what this means. Now apply the reserve clause from the very beginning. While planning, you consciously think, "I will book this restaurant for us, fate permitting." This simple acknowledgement prepares your mind for the possibility of change. When the text about rescheduling arrives, you are psychologically prepared. It's not a shocking deviation from the one acceptable reality. It's simply fate exercising its permission. You can respond with genuine grace and flexibility because your happiness was never solely contingent on this one evening going exactly as planned. This practice is the ultimate antidote to outcome dependence, which is the root of all needy behavior. When your sense of well-being is chained to a specific result, her saying yes, the date going perfectly, them committing, you hand over your emotional stability to fortune, a notoriously fickle master. The reserve clause keeps your emotional center of gravity within yourself. Your goal shifts from achieving a predetermined outcome to simply acting with virtue and integrity in the pursuit of your intention. Your success is measured by the quality of your effort, not by the lottery of the result. This means you can wholeheartedly invest in planning a wonderful date while simultaneously holding the entire plan lightly, knowing that a cancelled evening says nothing about your worth and everything about the unpredictable nature of life. The beautiful paradox of this mindset is that it makes you more attractive through the relaxed, non-needy confidence it generates. When you are not rigidly attached to a specific outcome, you stop emitting the frequency of desperation that subconsciously pushes people away. You become more adaptable, more fun, and more pleasant to be around because you aren't trying to force reality into a narrow box. You engage with the person in front of you as they are, in the moment as it is, rather than constantly comparing the experience to an idealized fantasy in your head. This acceptance of life's inherent uncertainty is the mark of a truly mature and resilient individual, someone who can navigate the complexities of romance not with fear, but with a calm and open-hearted curiosity, ready to embrace whatever beautiful, unexpected form connection might actually take. And finally, we arrive at the ultimate perspective shift, the discipline that puts all the others into a grand and humbling context. This is the 25th and final Stoic practice, developing cosmic consciousness. This might sound like an abstract or even mystical concept, but for the Stoics, it was the most practical and grounding worldview imaginable. It is the practice of zooming out, far out until you see your life, your desires, and your struggles not as the center of the universe, but as a tiny, fleeting, and beautiful part of an infinitely vast and interconnected whole. When you cultivate this expansive awareness, the small, ego-driven dramas of dating and rejection simply lose their power to provoke desperate behavior because you are viewing them from the vantage point of the cosmos itself. The ancient Stoics were pioneers of this cosmic perspective. They spoke of being citizens of the universe, a concept they called cosmopolitanism. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his meditations, writing lines like, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it," and "Take a view from above, look at the thousands of flocks and herds, the thousands of ceremonies of marriage and divorce, of journeys and voyages, of all the comings and goings." And finally, behold the life of others in times past, and the life of others who will live after you, and the life now being lived among the barbarian nations. He wasn't being poetic, he was engaged in a deliberate mental exercise to shatter the illusion of his own self-importance and to connect himself to the grand, flowing stream of existence. From this vantage point, his personal anxieties about palace intrigues or political setbacks seemed almost laughably small. Now, apply this cosmic consciousness to the agony of simping. That crushing feeling when someone you're infatuated with doesn't text back. It feels like the entire world has stopped turning. Your ego has placed this single interaction at the absolute center of your emotional universe. But what happens when you consciously adopt the view from above? You see yourself as a tiny dot on a spinning planet, one of billions of humans, each with their own equally complex inner world of hopes and fears. You see the person you're fixated on in the same way another tiny dot, navigating their own journey, governed by their own history and motivations that have absolutely nothing to do with your worth. Their decision to reply or not reply is revealed for what it truly is, a microscopic event in the incomprehensible expanse of space and time. This realization doesn't make your feelings invalid, it simply puts them in their proper, manageable proportion. This perspective is the ultimate cure for the ego, which is the engine of all desperation. The ego screams, "I must have this, I must be validated by that person. My story must unfold exactly as I demand." Cosmic consciousness whispers back, "You are a part of everything, and everything is in a constant state of change. This desire, this moment, this person, they are all fleeting phenomena in an eternal flow." When you internalize this, you stop taking rejection personally because you understand it's rarely about you at all. It's about timing, compatibility, circumstance, and the other person's own journey. You are freed from the prison of your own ego's narrative and can engage with others from a place of genuine curiosity and compassion, rather than a need to use them to prop up your sense of self. Developing this awareness is a daily practice. It can be as simple as spending 5 minutes looking at photographs from the James Webb Space Telescope, contemplating the sheer number of galaxies, each containing billions of stars. It can be reading history, realizing that every single person in the past felt loves and losses as intensely as you do, and that their dramas too are now dust. It can be walking in nature and observing the intricate, indifferent systems that operate entirely without concern for your romantic life. Each of these actions is a thread pulling you out of the narrow, suffocating closet of your own concerns and into the fresh, open air of a much larger reality. You begin to see your quest for connection not as a desperate scramble for validation, but as a humble and courageous attempt to find a little warmth and companionship on a small rock hurtling through a cold, beautiful, and silent universe. And from that place of profound humility and awe, the most mature, healthy, and truly fulfilling relationships are finally able to grow. And so here we are at the end of our journey through these 25 Stoic disciplines. But it's crucial to understand that this isn't truly an ending, it's a beginning. These principles are not a checklist to be completed, but a system to be lived. They are interlocking gears in a single, powerful engine designed for one ultimate purpose: to forge an unshakable foundation of self-worth that is entirely independent of anyone else's opinion or attention. When you internalize the dichotomy of control, you stop handing your emotional state over to others. When you practice negative visualization, you disarm the fear of loss that creates desperation. Cultivating self-respect ensures you never again bargain your dignity for validation, while embracing voluntary discomfort builds the resilience to handle any outcome with grace. This is how the system works in concert. The view from above and cosmic consciousness provide the macro perspective that shrinks social anxiety down to its proper, trivial size, while the micro practices of deliberate response and the discipline of ascent give you the tools to manage moment-to-moment triggers. Amor Fati teaches you to embrace every outcome as a necessary teacher, and the focus on virtue as the sole good reorients your entire life around an internal scorecard that no one can take from you. This isn't about becoming a stone-cold, unfeeling person. It's about becoming a deeply feeling, yet utterly unshakable one. You stop simping not because you stop caring about connection, but because you start caring more about the quality of your own character. You realize that a genuine relationship can only be built between two whole individuals, not between one whole person and another who is desperately searching for their missing pieces in them. The transformation begins the moment you decide that your peace of mind is more valuable than any person's fleeting attention. It continues with each small, daily choice, the choice to not send that needy text, the choice to refocus on your mission after a rejection, the choice to state your honest opinion even if it might not be popular. This is the practical path. Consistency is your most powerful tool here. Do not attempt to master all 25 disciplines at once. Pick one that resonates most with your current struggle, perhaps mindful detachment or the reserve clause, and practice it with intention for a week. Then add another. This is a marathon of character building, not a sprint. Be patient and compassionate with yourself, understanding that every lapse is not a failure but a lesson, another repetition in the gym for your soul. We would be incredibly honored to hear about your journey in the comments below. Tell us which discipline had the most immediate impact on your life. Share your story of a moment where you consciously chose Stoic resilience over simping desperation. Your transformation can serve as a beacon of inspiration for others on the same path, proving that this ancient philosophy is not just theory, but a practical, life-changing operating system for modern masculinity. This is your invitation to stop begging for a seat at someone else's table and to instead build your own kingdom from the inside out. You have the blueprint. The power was within you all along. Now go and live it.